Genghis Khan, born in 1162, was the founder and first emperor of the Mongol Empire, the largest empire in history. He was born with a blood clot in his hand, an apparent symbol that he would have great power. At 9 years old, his father brought him to meet his future wife, and on the way home, a rival tribe killed his father. Soon, Genghis's brother started to exert control over the family, and Genghis was not going to let that happen. His army took over palaces as far away as Kyiv, modern-day Ukraine. Genghis Khan is most well known for his brutal punishments and irrational behavior. According to history books, Genghis killed more people in 25 years than the Romans managed to do in 400 years. Today we'll share the most brutal punishments of Genghis Khan. Welcome to Crazy Histories, where we bring you the craziest and weirdest facts from human history. Some of the things discussed in this video may be offensive or disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Genghis Khan, murderous, irrational, and unpredictable. For young Genghis, life in Mongolia was brutal. The tribe Genghis and his family belonged to kicked his mother out. After that, his mother had to raise her 7 children alone since a rival tribe had poisoned his father. Genghis caught fish at 14 years old and brought it back for his family. Since the tribe had cast out Genghis and his family, the fish Genghis caught was quite a prize. Berta, Genghis's half-brother, stole the fish from Genghis's hand and devoured it, not sharing any with his 6 siblings or mother. Stealing the fish and not sharing angered Genghis, and after Berta finished the fish, Genghis shot him with a bow and arrow. No worries though, Genghis's mother punished Genghis for the murder of his brother. At 9 years old, while on a trip home with his father, the duo came upon an enemy tribe called the Tatars. In the past, Genghis's father and the Tatar tribe had issues, but this time the Tatars invited the father and son for a peace meeting. During the dinner, the Tatars poisoned Genghis's father for his past transgressions against them. When Genghis grew up, he wanted to avenge his father's murder by the Tatars. Genghis wiped out the entire Tatar army and killed every male taller than 3 feet in an act of cruel brutality. It's assumed Genghis annihilated all the men to prevent any revenge attacks. While on his conquest for land, a ruler stood in Genghis Khan's way. Genghis offered the ruler a peace offering so he could bypass them on his journey, but the ruler refused the offering. There was no way Genghis would tolerate this, and he tortured the ruler who denied his peace offering. He poured molten hot silver into the man's orifices, killing him. The silver would have likely ruptured his organs and burned his lungs. Genghis Khan and his Mongolian army made their way to Zhongdu, modern-day Beijing. The walls surrounding the city were massive, so Genghis and his military troops decided not to try and get over them. Instead, the brutal ruler and his army starved the citizens of Zhongdu. It would be easier for Genghis to starve the people of Zhongdu and then take over the city. Soon, the people were dying of hunger, and many had resorted to cannibalism. Eventually, the people of Zhongdu surrendered, and Genghis burned the rest of the village after they relinquished control. Witnesses from the horrific event recalled seeing bones piled as high as mountains and the soil shining with human fat. He used daughters to gain power during his reign of terror. According to historians, Genghis Khan officially had 4 sons and 5 daughters, but the actual number of children he fathered is much higher. Historians also say Genghis was a feminist during his reign of terror. He would marry off his daughters to rulers of an allied nation. There was an ulterior motive for Genghis in doing this. Once married to one of Genghis's daughters, the ruler would have to cast off all other wives. They didn't do this because their new father-in-law didn't believe in polygamy, but because it meant Genghis's daughter was next in line for the throne. Genghis would then send his new son-in-law to fight for the Mongolian army, where he would most certainly die. Once dead, Genghis's daughter would be the ruler of the kingdom. Some people say that at the time of Genghis's death, his daughter ruled an area from China to Iran. Tokuchar, the husband of one of Genghis's daughters, was his favorite son-in-law. Unfortunately, a rival archer murdered Tokuchar, and Genghis's daughter was devastated. She wanted vengeance for her husband. Genghis wasn't mad only for his daughter. He loved Tokuchar very much and wanted to avenge him. Genghis sent his Mongolian troops to the area where the rival archer was from and slaughtered over 1 million people. The Mongolian army did not discriminate and killed men, women, and children. Most victims were beheaded, and the Mongolian army piled their heads into pyramids per Genghis's daughter's request. She wanted to ensure no one got away. He destroyed an empire and had dinner on the dying victims. The brutal ruler decided he wanted to trade with Sultan Muhammad II from Persia. The Sultan denied Genghis's trade treaty and killed the men who brought the message from Genghis. He didn't believe the men were there for trade and was suspicious of them. Genghis sent one more convoy to Sultan Muhammad II, but again he denied their offer for a treaty. Genghis was insulted by Sultan Muhammad II's refusal to trade with him, and no one hurt Genghis Khan's feelings. He decided to declare war on all the Persian cities. He diverted a river through the Sultan's land, eradicating the area and wiping it off the map. After Genghis's Mongol army won one battle, they celebrated in a rather morbid way. When the Russians Genghis was fighting relinquished, he tied them up and placed their bodies under a scaffold. While Genghis and his army dined on the platform that evening, the Russians bound underneath it slowly suffocated and died. He was intolerant and as mean as Joseph Stalin. Historians say Genghis was a man tolerant of different cultures and actively sought advice from holy men of other religions. Genghis had a strong dislike for people of the Muslim and Jewish faith. People of Muslim and Jewish religions followed a strict religious diet, but Genghis would not allow them to abide by it and forced them to eat the unholy Mongolian food. He also didn't allow Jewish people who lived in his kingdom to follow their religious act of circumcision. Soldiers who surrendered to Genghis expecting to live usually found themselves standing on the front line of his army, used as a shield to protect Genghis's soldiers. He would also make the captured soldiers fight to the most of their ability. If not, Genghis threatened them with his sword. The better the captured soldiers fought, the better their odds of surviving. The soldiers who did survive were awarded with a permanent spot in Genghis's army. Joseph Stalin, former leader of the Soviet Union, is said to have killed as many as 20 million people, which is more people than Hitler killed. But Genghis Khan and the Mongolian armies he ruled killed closer to 40 million people. Whenever Genghis got a chance to, Genghis boasted about his high number of kills. He used this as a way to intimidate enemies. Had everyone who buried his body killed. Genghis Khan wanted his burial spot to be kept a secret from everyone. He never wanted anyone to find his body. After Genghis died, although his actual cause of death was unknown, enslaved people accompanied by soldiers brought his body deep into a wooded area. The enslaved people buried the body, and then the soldiers killed them, throwing them into the same grave as Genghis. The soldiers planted trees on the grave to ensure no one would ever find it. When the soldiers returned from planting the trees, waiting Mongol warriors killed them. Now, no one could ever divulge the secret of where Genghis's grave was. There is no doubt that Genghis Khan was one of the most brutal killers in history. His reign of terror was the most violent in human history, and his number of kills doubled that of Joseph Stalin, the most evil man in history. To this day, no one has discovered the tomb of Genghis Khan, but historians continue to search throughout history for where he was laid to rest. Something weird is that about every 5 out of every 200 men have traces of Genghis Khan's DNA. Because Genghis had so many children, his DNA still exists in people today.